I think it's kind of unbelievable to think that I promised the day I walked out the gate that I sat there and I prayed and I cried, please just let me use this.
Yeah.
And I was serious. I wasn't playing. So I think it's good for him to see me maintain the commitment and really keep pushing, because it has been very complicated. It's been difficult. We've lost so many friends and expected to not get stabbed in the back by so many people that have turned. And we weren't expecting opposition on this. When I first got into this, I just thought, who's going to disagree with this? This is obviously, this is an easy win.
People should be bad. I understood it. Yeah.
But no, it was incredible how much opposition we've faced. And my dad's just still on the sidelines cheering like he always has been.
Welcome. Today we have another episode for Healthcare Stories with Healthcare Henry. This one is featuring today's guest, Amie Ichikawa. Did I say that correctly?
You did. Yes, you did.
And we won't tell anybody that we actually practiced that 10 times beforehand. But no, that's great. I'm very, very excited to have this particular guest. And her story is one that I really wanted to get out there and for us to be able to kind of go over. Because what we're doing is we're sharing experiences that a lot of people have gone through so that people can have some insight on what to do next. But thank you, Amie, for coming. It's definitely a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. I'm glad you guys reached out.
Good. I like to start with childhood. I think it's just always important when we hear stories to get a point of reference and learn a little bit about you and who you are and what it is that you do for a living and how you got to this point in your life.
This is going to be an interesting story. So I'm an only child.
Okay.
My mom, was a stay-at-home mom for the most part until I was in about junior high. My dad's a retired LA County sheriff.
Wow.
I thought I had a fairly normal childhood, but I did have some issues with, authority, being that, sheriff's daughter kind of thing. I did have some run-ins with the law a little later in life than most people who end up in prison. And I did end up serving 5 years in a California state prison. And I came home and started a nonprofit, and I advocate for incarcerated women now. And I'm also an ambassador with the Independent Women's Forum. And this whole thing just hit me really hard because I can advocate for women across the country that I don't even know, but I couldn't advocate for my mom. So
this is interesting because, but I know we're going to talk about your mom, but just want to make sure we really understand your perspective, right? And you say your dad was a sheriff.
Yes.
And you ended up doing 5 years of, is it prison time?
Yes.
So when you say you have issues with authority growing up, what does that look like?
I was very defiant. I really thought I was above the law. I lacked accountability. I just really thought I was untouchable, and sold drugs on the weekend and thought that was okay. Mm-hmm. And that eventually led to, kidnapping somebody over a $20 debt, traumatizing this woman, her family, my family. But, I'm extremely blessed because everybody else I've ever met who had even similar charges or situations is still in prison, and
sure,
there's no end in sight. So I was very blessed with the amount of time that I received, and if I could do anything differently, I probably would have just stayed longer because I could have used a little bit longer in timeout. But I wouldn't give those 5 years back if I could change it. I needed to be there. I needed to understand the world doesn't revolve around me, and that my actions impact a lot of other people. It's not just me. I'm not a singular thing in the universe. It's like a
That's
web.
interesting. Yeah, no, that's super interesting because rarely do I hear someone say it's one thing to say I deserved rehab, right? I deserved it because of my crime. But when you say I needed it and possibly even needed more time, then that leads me to think, what is it about it that was it being in timeout? What was it about being in there that kind of helped make you a better person? And because this is so interesting, because we're talking about a lot of times jail and prison and what it's like, and it's just not the stories that I'm used to hearing when people tell me about going to jail.
Well, I'm pretty sure I would have died had I not gone to prison. I was in an extremely abusive relationship, and it was going nowhere very fast. Within 6 months of meeting this person, I was looking at life in prison and had $10,000 of debt out of nowhere. It was just out of control. And I constantly sought abusive, unhealthy, toxic relationships for affirmation. And I needed to go to prison and sit down and be quiet because I was moving so fast. I couldn't hear that still small voice. I didn't know I hated myself. And it took, me being in the presence of lifers and women who had been working on themselves for decades to really drive that issue home. Like you don't have to hate yourself. If a man only calls you on your payday, he doesn't like you. I just needed people to really, I needed a lot of people around me telling me that to kind of, reprogram, reprogram me and undo the programming that I had subjected myself to. So it saved my life. That's how I feel.
What is it like in there?
It's not good. It's worse now as opposed to the almost 15 years since I've been home. It's very dehumanizing. It really evens the playing field. Like you're nobody. You're just a number. But there were just so many special people I got to meet that I was able to hear, because people had been trying to help me my whole life, but I couldn't hear them. I had no ears to hear. So I heard these ladies loud and clear. And
Yeah.
I just needed like an emotional boot camp. I needed it really aggressive and like condensed. I needed life lessons in this 5-year period. And during that time, I really, learned about being a woman and how special it is. And there's a lot of good things that happen in there. But it is real. It's dark. It's pretty dark. There's so many things that are dehumanizing that I'm somewhat desensitized. Just, the constant stripping out, just being constantly humiliated, the things that you learn in there too. I learned a whole lot of stuff in there that I didn't know that wasn't necessarily beneficial. You do learn a lot of other criminal behaviors, but I didn't come home with that mindset. I really just wanted to give back and make sure that the time I spent inside counted for something, and that I could use it to benefit other people somehow. And
that's so interesting. How's your relationship with your dad, a past sheriff? What is that like now?
It's good. He's always been kind of my number one supporter. I mean, the day that I was arrested, the middle of the night I was arrested, he was there immediately. He was the first person in lockup, and he just looked at me and said, "What? You told on yourself?" He said, "After all these years of us watching Cops and 48 Hours and all these shows, you told on yourself?" And I said, "Yeah, because, the detectives found a picture of he and I, and he was in uniform. And they said, 'Oh, we know your dad. We know him. We're never going to see him again.'" And I said, "Oh, well, what do I have to say? What do you want?" Because, after hours and hours of, interrogation, that just they got me. Uh, but he's always been really supportive. Even if he's, asleep, he's still there. Um,
Yeah.
he came to every single court date in his uniform, made sure, tracked my, wherever I was at, if I was out to court, making sure that I was getting back to lock up and that I was okay. He came to see me once a week while I was fighting my case, and then once a month for 5 years until I came home.
That's so interesting. And I'll be honest, that's one part of it where when I'm from the south side of Chicago, right? And so I hear a lot of stories. I have a lot of friends who are still in jail from high school to this day. And I was in high school in 06. And I'd be honest, for lesser cases, right? And I mean, we're talking drug offenses. Like, these people are still in jail, prison, whatever, for lesser cases. This is extremely interesting. You also said that you felt like you were above the law.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the only reason why I'm asking is because I want people to truly understand where you came from to where you are now. What, were you in therapy for things like this, or was it just like, I just went out there and I felt like my dad would get me out of anything?
I really thought that I always had the dad card, and I just did not understand consequences at all. I really didn't think that was an issue for me. I would drive fast on purpose. I would, especially when there was law enforcement around, I would just act really wild and I was a jerk. I was a horrible teenager, like a professional teenager. I just gave my folks a lot of headaches. There was a lot of nights I'm sure they didn't sleep at all. I mean, it's taken a lot for me to understand just how much. I've had to talk to a lot of other parents with broken hearts to understand how big of an impact I had to have had on their lives. So, been doing a lot of apologizing, and I'm really blessed that I was able to, express this to my mom prior to her passing, because I couldn't say it enough how sorry I was for being so selfish and aware,
Are you in therapy for that now?
No, should probably be.
Yeah. When did she pass? How long ago?
It will be a year in August.
And no, you haven't done any therapy at all? No grief therapy or anything?
No. And then that, I've had it suggested by a couple of people, because it's not, I had another strange loss just 2 years before that, and I didn't really, I haven't really processed that, and this, and I really need to be on the mentally well side of things, because I'm no good at advocating if I'm not taking care of myself.
That's true. It's just like on the airplane, you got to put your own mask on first, right? You can't help other people if you can't breathe as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's just, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. You just can't help other people if you can't breathe. When you say advocating, what are you advocating for now?
Well, currently in our nation's women's prisons, we have a female human rights crisis. Well, initially, let me start from the beginning. Initially, I really wanted to act as a resource hub for women coming out of prison, because the resources are kind of gate kept by larger organizations, and if you're not really plugged in with them, you don't know what resources are available. So
what does that mean? What does that mean when you say gate kept by? What does that mean?
There's larger organizations, larger NGOs that
what's an NGO?
A non-government organization.
Okay.
These are, the bigger, well-funded organizations. In California, it's kind of monopolized. I, didn't realize how competitive the nonprofit game is before I got involved. I really wanted to help, and I was not understanding this is a very competitive, cutthroat.
Oh yeah.
So, there's a lot of people that really could benefit from the services. But if you're not, selling out or becoming a poster child for these orgs, you're just not going to be accessing these resources. So I'm trying to find ways around all of that and make sure that people have the tools that they need to set a strong foundation for the next level in their life. And at the same time I was doing that, same month I started my organization. California started gender self-ID laws. And within the prison system, meaning anyone can declare their preferred gender and transfer to the prison of their preferred gender with no other requirements. So at first I was like, well, that's, okay. But I got into the law and I read the full law, and there are literally no requirements. You're not on hormone replacement therapy. You're not on the list to get, gender reassignment surgery. You're just declaring. So clearly this is going to be an issue and people are going to take advantage of this. And that's what happened.
When this still in effect now, and you can just write on a piece of paper.
Yes.
If you're in jail in California, you're a man, you can say I'm now a woman and you'll be transferred to the female jail.
Yes. Well, you're going to be put on the list, and then you have to go to committee and they have to review your file. But there's issues here. The law was so precisely written. You can't use someone's criminal history, sexual orientation, or physical attributes as a reason to deny someone a request to transfer. And those are all reasons you would think you would be able to use, but you cannot, meaning we have fully intact operational trans-identifying male prisoners with everything intact, and long histories of violence against women and
sexual abuse, whatever.
33.8%, as a matter of fact, are registered sex offenders. In California, in the federal system, it's almost 50% of the transfer requests are sex offenders.
This doesn't even seem real to me, right? Like this is like it's blowing my mind. I would have never even thought in a million years. I mean, bare minimum, you got to have a sex change. Like just something, right? Like this just sounds like an issue, just like a problem. And why isn't anyone talking about this?
There's, because I've been screaming about this at the top of my lungs for almost 5 years now. And, I've done all kinds of shows, every podcast you can think of, and it's still news to everybody. It's like there's a moratorium on it in the media. Nobody will really talk about it. And there's just a narrative that's pushed that isn't accurate. Even I wanted to make sure that I wasn't being hateful and that I was coming from a place of love and like in an informed position. So, I've reached out to trans people in the men's prison, developed relationships with them, and they have expressed that they don't want nothing to do with this. They don't understand where the statistics are coming from, that they're in danger constantly. It's not like the movies, and it's not the 90s. Things have changed. Everybody's at risk when you wake up in the morning in prison. Not just this small community, it's everybody. And the majority of the people who are transferring are either unsafe on mail yards because of the nature of their crimes. They really have no place else to go, or they have nefarious agendas. They really want to get to the women's facility and get it on. And there's been pregnancies. We've got, a spike in, domestic violence issues. And a lot of women are broken and they seek out male validation desperately. So they're on this. And unfortunately, I'm waiting for the spike in, STIs, because that's next.
It's already there. I would almost be sure that it's already there.
They put condom dispensers in the day rooms, in the women's prisons. And, I got some calls and the ladies were just like, what is this? What are they doing? They put condoms in here. What are they saying? Like, and I didn't know, there was really no words that I could find to console them at that point, because how much more blatantly disrespectful do you have to get?
Yeah.
And then there is another aspect of the California policy where these individuals who transfer can pick their roommates, they can pick their
Mhm.
cellies, they can say they want everybody in an 8-person cell to get out because they don't feel safe. They can pick their job assignments. It's created it's created a dangerous power imbalance. You know, they can wield power over the female population, and they're just not being heard. Um,
And just brute strength, right? If we're being honest, right? If you're talking about men versus women, how many women would it realistically take to stop a man from doing something he wants to do, especially guys in prison doing 1,000 push-ups a day, right? I'm just being honest, right? It's just, this is, it almost sounds like a movie.
yes,
But go ahead.
it feels like it. If I wasn't living this, I don't think I could really believe it the first time I heard it, because it's nuts. Who would advocate for this? But that the California supermajority, everybody fully supported this. Even the Women's Caucus supported it. And I've reached out to all of our state reps and said, "How did you read this law before you voted yes on it? Because
Sure.
it's not so great." Even the author, I've reached out to the author on many occasions, and we haven't had the best relationship, but we're getting there. We're just chipping away at the issue, and I'm trying to really express that my concern is for the entire population. I don't want anybody to be subjected to cruel and unusual punishment, or for anybody to be unsafe. Because prison, you're going to be somewhat unsafe, but one person's safety can't come at the cost of another's.
This is one of those things where you, like, for the industry that I'm in, we're in hospice, and I'm always wondering why people don't know certain things. This isn't the first time you said this, I'm sure of it.
No.
So why is it, so is the message being pressed down? What is it that's so difficult to get? Okay.
I think there's a lot of, in California especially, there's some very deep politics that goes into financial backing, and us being a trans sanctuary state. Our governor's not going to bend on it, at all. They're not bending on the sports. They're definitely not going to bend to this. And there was a executive order actually on the first day of the presidency that prohibited anybody from moving to the facility that is other than what you were born as. But 2 days after that, there were lawsuits filed immediately by several federal prisoners in, I think, 4 different states, and the judges granted nationwide injunctions against the executive order. So even though SCOTUS just said you can't do that anymore, these are still pending, and these are still active lawsuits. So until there's action in those, there's no respite for these ladies.
Okay. And so even with all of this information, what exactly are you doing now? Like, what is it that you're advocating for?
For their safety, for them to have guardrails. Because I'm really not trying to go in and do anything that's going to result in someone else being hurt, especially because the ladies would not condone that either. I sponsored a bill in California, that would at least prohibit registered sex offenders from being able to transfer, and that was killed in the first committee. This was just a couple months ago. I'm pushing for modification or a complete rewrite of the Prison Rape Elimination Act, because women are not a protected class in that federal guideline. We need a complete overhaul. I'm in touch with the DOJ Civil Rights Department, and they're working on something. I'm very impatient.
Yeah. You want it done now, right? You feel like this is something that's important and people are at risk on a daily basis. So for you, it's like, what is taking so long? But we do understand it is a process. But with what you're doing now, and I just want to touch back on your mom. And you said she passed. How long ago was that? A year ago?
11 months ago. Yeah, a year
11
ago.
months ago. Were you able to have conversations with her about what you're doing now? What were her thoughts on that? And then also, what happened? How did she pass?
She was always very supportive. She was one of those moms that would, write all my roommates in prison that didn't get mail.
Oh,
she
no, that's beautiful.
She was very supportive.
Yeah.
And she was very proud in her own quiet little way about what I've accomplished at this point. With every interview, with every article, she would she started getting into it more and more towards the end. She was like, "Wow, the New York Post." And I'd be like, "Yeah, Mom, the New York."
It became exciting.
Yeah, and everybody inside knows my mom. So it was hard. I didn't want to have to tell them too, because I was going to have to tell like 100 people the same story 100 different times, and I had to kind of shut down for a while because I was like, how many times a day can I tell this story? It's getting harder. I just need a little break. So I did take a break, but that's my support system, the women inside. So I can't really cut them off for extended periods of time because they are my support network. So it was unexpected. She was 72, but I really, my sense of reality is a little warped. I forget that I'm, 44. I think, no, I'm 24, but no, we're grown now. And I wasn't really hitting when she would tell me I'm not going to be here forever. She was serious, and her hip had been bothering her for some time, and she had become very sedentary, and I didn't realize how sedentary. And she went in for the hip replacement. She had been seeing a cardiologist, and they had told her lose some weight, get mobile, and that'll make the hip replacement a lot easier. She went in for the hip replacement on Monday. I went to see her on Tuesday, and she was walking in much better format than she had been walking before, and I was really happy. But she did tell me that her surgeon let her know there was a defect in her femur, and that bone cement had leaked out in the process of surgery, and that immediately seemed like a red flag to me. I was concerned about, what if something else came through the bone defect? What if like embolism? What if some fat pushed out? Anything that could, cause a serious issue? And she said her surgeon said it wouldn't be a problem, not to worry about it unless she had a fall. And I was like, well, okay. I'm trying not to stress her out or to get her riled up. And she said, I'm just going to trust my surgeon. And she was the kind of person who didn't want to bother anybody. I don't want to question the doctor. I was like, that's okay to question everything. Please ask questions. It's good.
I agree 100%. Mm-hmm.
But I think not just her, a lot of women tend to not ask questions because you get gaslit that you're crazy a lot of times. So you just clam up and you don't ask those questions. You just don't want it to be a bother. So she didn't say anything. And this was Tuesday. On Thursday, she was feeling not so great. She said, please pray that I can use the bathroom soon. And I said, oh, first, you got to stop taking those opioids, whatever kind of painkillers they're giving you, cut it down, because that's going to slow everything down.
That's made her constipated. Is that what we were saying? Okay.
And she said, okay, because she was, very regimented, very, religiously taking these pain meds, trying to stay on top of the pain. But I said, they didn't tell you that this causes severe constipation, because that's something I learned in prison, is everybody's on morphine or something. So I remembered that. I said, this is not good for you. They should have paired this with some kind of stool softener or something, and they didn't. By Sunday, she really wasn't feeling good. Monday, she went to the ER with numbness in her arms. And I went to the ER, and they were going to take her to ICU. And they said they were going to run a line through her neck. And when they said that, I knew that this was not, it's not going to end well. And her heart rate was really, really high. Her blood pressure was extremely low. And I figured this is it. They couldn't get her stable enough to run the test or the x-rays or see where what was going on in her bowels, because they were thinking there was ischemia. Is that how you say it? And it led to sepsis. I knew she was septic. They were, busy testing for COVID. I was like, well, she's septic. What are you testing for COVID for? It's quite obvious by the way her readings are going. And then, I thought I should shut up and back off, let them do their jobs. And by Friday, she was gone. And
that's 2 weeks.
That's, yeah. That's, or it
10
was
days. 10
actually,
days.
Was it 1 week from the hip replacement was Monday? Then she was in the hospital by Monday. Yes. So
and she died that Friday. Mm-hmm. So yeah, about 11 days from.
Yeah, and they her ICU doctors were very caring and very detail oriented, and they were pretty much right on everything. But I still wanted an autopsy because that's my mom. And they didn't make it very easy.
Who's they?
The hospital staff, the liaison, after somebody dies, you contact that person. And they said, well, if you need the doctors to explain what happened again, we can have them call you. And I said, no, they did a great job of explaining what happened. I just want to move forward with an autopsy, please. And they said, well, there is no need for that. But the doctors said no. And I said, well, I'm saying yes, I want to do this independently, privately. And then they said, well, it's going to be about $4,000. And I said, well, you're not paying for it, so I don't understand what is the issue here. Can I just please get the number to the people who I can contact to get this done? And they were reluctant, but eventually gave me the information, and those people got it done and really quick. They took care of everything fast. And
what came from that?
Well, she had myocarditis. Her heart was grossly enlarged. She had one side of her heart that was extremely thick. Her arteries were 75 and 80% clogged. And chronic, so there's chronic heart disease here. She had chronic Hashimoto's disease. And there was the sepsis that came from the small intestine. There was blockage there. And so they were right about that, but my issue is, if she was seeing a cardiologist for a year prior to this, wouldn't they have noticed that her heart was not going to be able to make it through even the most basic surgery?
I see what you're saying. I don't know. That's an interesting take. This is in California, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. That's an interesting question, right? I don't know. I'm sure that there's probably some H&P or history on your mom that would show you what her, ejection fraction and things were up until that point, right? So that's probably also a point to start with. But that is an interesting point, because I guess what you're saying is, had you known her heart was bad in your opinion, you would not have done this surgery.
Right. Or would have waited till it was stabilized. Or, I mean, she needed a bypass. I think it just seemed like poor communication on the end of the cardiologist and the surgeon.
Did they work in the same hospital?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. That's super interesting. I've seen this before, um, but when I see it, there's normally nothing that's like bad that happened, right? It's like they went on with the surgery because at the time of the surgery they thought that this person could go on with the surgery, and 72 is not that old. I don't have any of her metrics or anything, but that is super interesting. I do have a question though. Before she passed, and this is life is just so crazy like this. You go in for a normal surgery, you pass, 10 days later. Did you ever get peace with your mom prior to that?
We had really started some, you know, deeper work into our relationship a few months
Yeah.
before. I, I had done an interview and she didn't she didn't understand some of the things that were mentioned in that, and she was wondering, what's standing in the way of us having, the most healthy relationship possible. And we really got into it and started unpacking some serious stuff. And she had to have some downtime for a couple of days, and then we got back together, and we both committed to
It's okay.
repairing the relationship. So we were actively working on it, and I'm just really happy that we were able to at least establish that that's what we wanted to do, because it would have been really hard had that not had transpired prior to her passing. I don't think I wouldn't be okay at all. I mean, I'm not okay, but that really would have made things a lot worse. But knowing that, you know, we forgave each other, that was the most important thing I think we said before this happened.
When I hear you talk, you speak so highly of your mom. You're so apologetic of what you think you've put your parents through as a child, and for whatever reason, is something that is with you. It just comes off as sincere. It really does come off as sincere, and it started with you saying, "I could have even used a little extra time in jail." I've just never heard that. It just really set the tone for who you are as a person, Amie. And one of the things that, and maybe you can kind of help walk us through with, or for one, are your parents still together, or were they still together at the time?
My mom had just filed for a divorce 5 years earlier, but they were not divorced. They were still, you know, hanging out and talking, and I love you. They were still, it was like they were still married. They just didn't live in the
Yeah.
same house.
Yeah.
Oh, that was that 40 years, I was like, you really can't divorce this guy 40 years.
It's like we've already done it. Yeah.
What are you doing? But they still, they still loved each other in their weird way. But that was, I think that was difficult because I loved my parents' marriage. um, it was awkward. But I wanted both of them to just, you're older, just do what you have to do to enjoy the rest of your life. And if it means
Yeah.
not being together, I'm all for it. Just what can I do to help?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. And one of the things is, especially with grief, right? When something happens or when someone passes, and when the person feels like their time was cut short, which is pretty much everyone. We all feel like our time was cut short with someone. And this is why we say people have to get into grief therapy. It helps you process, for one, that the person is gone. It was their time, but also helps you process any emotions that you might have, whether they be regret, right? You might say, oh my God, I wish I spent more time with my mom, right? Or you feel like we had done more together, or there's a conversation we didn't have. And also, when you're in grief therapy, I think people should be in group grief therapy. That's the one I tell people to do. Individual therapy is fine. I think it's fine for people. But group grief therapy will help you see that there are so many other people also going through this journey with you, because we all, so many times, my parents died 3 years ago, and I'm constantly, no, but it's okay, right? Because once you get in a group grief therapy setting, there are hundreds of thousands of people who also lost their parents, recently in a short amount of time. And then once you know that, you say, I'm not going through this alone. And you build a community off of that. So I think that would be super beneficial for you. I'm super proud of the work you're doing. What's the name of your nonprofit, by the way?
It's called Woman to Woman. Woman, woman, like Roman numerals.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Thank you. Yay.
I love that. Has it been easy for you to raise money?
No, no, especially over here, because I have been very outspoken about my stance in preserving women's rights, even if they're incarcerated. I've really cut myself off at the knees, but I know that that's okay, because there's another resource around the corner that is, tailor made for us, and it's just myself and my two partners, and we're definitely on a shoestring budget, but we're not in need. We always get everything right down to the penny. If somebody will say, oh my gosh, I need this right now, what are we going to do? I can't even pay the rent. And I'll go to the mailbox and there will be a check for that amount. So that's
I know the feeling. Trust me, I know the feeling. I cannot explain it. And like guys saying,
it is, and it's just us being faithful. And at some point, almost a year after we started, I was like, oh, you know what? Hold on, we didn't even make we didn't lay the cornerstone. Let's go ahead and start over. Let's get a redo. Let's get a fresh start and dedicate the organization to the Lord, so that it's out there and it's we're not hiding it. This is what it is. And it's just didn't make it easier, but it's made it better. And it's I don't know, it just feels good. And we just tell the truth. That's all we want to do. Tell the truth, encourage our friends, educate them, empower them, and help make sure that everybody in prison has access to respect, agency, and dignity, because they don't right now.
What type of people donate to this type of cause? Who is your ideal donor?
Anybody. Right now, there's a lot of feminists that help us.
Okay.
There's a couple of faithful Christians that keep us afloat, and that's about it right now. I know I'm trying to position things to where we can tap into some federal funding, because we're really trying to get federal legislation implemented so we can cover ladies in the county jails, in the juvenile halls, state and federal prisons, because there's just too many prisons and too many states to go state by state. And I
But
can't.
But overall, though, your goal is to just provide a better life for people in prison, right? If we were to say like a blanket statement, that is your goal. Mm-hmm. And with you coming from prison, you know what a better life looks like.
Right. And it's not what is happening right now. It's already a very trying situation. It's already very, it's a lot of weight just being in there. But then to add this into the equation, there's no one is accessing rehabilitation at this point. Everybody is either hypervigilant or active in their criminal thinking and behaviors. And that's not right for anybody. All the way down to the rapist. I'm concerned about this person the same as I am anybody else. This person doesn't deserve to be put in a situation where they are inevitably going to reoffend at the state's behest. Like, they are facilitating this. And it's everybody's losing. It's not a science project. These are people.
Yeah. I got you. I'm with you. I am, for one, I've never, like I said, I don't think I've talked to someone who was so honest. I think, no, I really do. And it says a lot to who you are. And as someone who has lost a mom, it is something that you cannot fathom unless it's happened to you. I don't care how well someone says, oh, I understand it. No, you don't. You do not understand losing a mother until you've lost your mother. And I don't say that to people to make them feel bad. What I'm telling them is the truth, right? Anyone who's lost their mother will tell you that. But I'm super proud of you. I want to say that.
Thank you.
One, I am always excited for people who are willing to do whatever it takes to fulfill their purpose. And for you, you feel like, hey, I went here. These are the things that need to be fixed. And I'm willing to sacrifice, in my opinion, I'm willing to put my life in the space to fulfill this for other people. Because I'm out now. This isn't even for you anymore. And most people wouldn't do that for other people. So I'm super excited about that ideal, right? Being able to and wanting to do that. I know your mom is super proud. And even as your dad, we never asked, but I'm just curious, ex-sheriff, what does he think about? What does he think about his daughter wanting better for people in prison?
Sometimes I think it's hard for him to wrap his head around because it's pretty big. You know, I tell him, hey, I'll be back in a couple days. I got to go to Florida. I got to go to DC. And he's like, what? And he's like, you did what? You the who called you? I'm like, yeah, Dad, that's the, yeah. Mm-hmm. I hear him bragging, you know, here and there. And I think it's kind of unbelievable to think that I promised the day I walked out that gate that I sat there and I prayed and I cried, please just let me use this. Yeah. And I was serious. I wasn't playing. So I think it's good for him to see me maintain the commitment and really keep pushing, because it has been very complicated. It's been difficult. We've lost so many friends and expected to not get stabbed in the back by so many people that have turned. And we weren't expecting opposition on this. When I first got into this, I just thought, who's going to disagree with this? This is obviously, this is an easy win.
People should be bad. I understood it. Yeah.
But no, it was incredible how much opposition we've faced. And my dad's just still on the sidelines cheering like he always has been. So it's good. Glad he's still here.
I love that. I love it. I'm super excited. And where can people find you? Where are you? On Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube? Where are you sharing your stories?
Twitter. I talk a lot on the Twitter.
Okay. On the Twitter. Okay.
on the Twitter, and I have my personals, and I have the organization on all platforms. It's Woman I Woman Inc.
I Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and
Okay.
the Twitter. And
Okay. What about your personals?
my personals are ICHIX310.
Okay.
And I try and talk and write as much as I can about all of this stuff, because people have to personalize it. I think if they can personally connect to the issue, then they can be more sympathetic and relate. So I tell a lot of horrible stories trying to hit different demographics, and I do my best to platform the other ladies inside so that people who might not connect with me, maybe her story will resonate with them, or her story, or his story, whoever. Because I'm trying to hit all targets, every demographic, because this is a human rights issue. It's not. I don't think it should be politically polarized, even though it is. But it's a people issue, and it's going to take all kinds of people to correct this.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I learned something more than I would have ever thought. And of course, I haven't done a lot of research, but I feel like I've got enough done today to where I can actually go back into my community and start asking questions as well, and speak to some senators and just kind of get a feel for what's going on. Any last words you have for people? Anything you want to leave them with?
You really got to advocate for your folks when they're in the hospital. They need to. You have to act as their case manager, because communication is not some of these doctors or hospitals' strong point. And you should never feel like you're doing too much or getting on somebody's nerves. Just do it. It's worth that moment of feeling like you're intruding on somebody to make sure your parents are okay, or anybody who's vulnerable. And advocacy, just do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I say it all the time. So thank you, Amie. I appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm excited we're able to find time for this one. I learned a lot. And for everyone that's looking for how to get in touch with her, is Women or Woman?
Woman.
Woman with an A. I Woman at all platforms. And you can reach out to her, and she will, like she did with us, she will actually respond to her DMs. So thank you. We appreciate it, Amie.
Thank you.